Welcome to The Way Hum, the podcast where we navigate the fascinating realms of transformation and the clarity of living life in full awareness. Join us as we seek to uncover age-old secrets of how to create a more intentioned and harmonious existence, and where we do this standing in the transcendent power of love, while at the same time shouldering the immense responsibility of truth-telling, whether it serves the current narrative or not. We are lifelong spiritual seekers, and we are here to share. I want to introduce my co-host, Michael Happy Murray.
Yes.
Good. This is exciting, right?
Absolutely exciting.
Chris.
And whatever you want to call me, Michael or Happy, works for me. Doesn't matter.
Well, I wanted to get your whole name in there, although you know that we rarely say I don't even know if I knew your last name for the first 3 or 4 months that I knew you.
Yeah.
So you are happy to me, and you are happy.
Oftentimes people can be like, God, man, how can your life be such rainbows, Skittles, and unicorns?
Unicorns.
Right? Why do you always like, let's say, my nickname Happy, right? I've had it for a long time.
Yeah.
And I had it before my accident, right? It's kind of I've always been a pretty happy dude because I've always sort of known that something's out there, something's moving.
Yeah.
And I always knew it to be love, right? But it is a process, and there are many, many, many things that people can do to touch it, to see it, to experience it and feel it. Because, for me, love is a feeling. It's not verbal.
Right.
In the sense of, I love you.
Right.
Right? I tell everyone I love them because I do.
Yeah.
But I want to feel it.
Right.
And that's what happened with you and I. We randomly collided in the same place, the same time, and we felt something. Right? Yeah. And so in that sense, the word is not the thing. Love, we didn't feel love, in the sense of
dating,
romantic, or
attraction,
pleasure, lust,
right,
or something like that. I mean, that feeling was it was childlike,
mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it was acknowledged and confirmed by a smile.
Yeah.
And then
there was a little play there,
and
too.
Then that was it, right? You know what I mean?
A little jockeying,
yeah.
Oh, who are you? Kind of,
mm-hmm. I'm kind of busy, but I really like to talk to you, right?
Yeah, it was the thing, especially in that environment where I just really found it necessary to be on, because people need that dose when
absolutely
they're moving around in the morning, so many people, and that they do.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's kind and it is an exchange, right?
Mm-hmm.
So because I'm just not this person who was had this open door policy, and
right,
because it is an energy flow, it actually takes a little bit of I guess energy. Let's just say it takes a little energy, right? You can be depleted of this thing, and other people, it's an exchange. They can kind of give you more and fill up your reserves, and you push it off, and it goes back and forth. And in that environment, I did that. It became just kind of a natural thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
But I was also trying to pull it out of people as well. And so...
Or show them. Or turn it on.
Right, absolutely.
Or do how I am. I just sort of like to talk to random people and just sort of see where they are. Right? And it's as very simple as, hi, how are you?
Yeah.
How is your day today?
Right.
And look them squarely in the most sincere fashion and smile. Hi, how are you?
Right.
How is your day today?
And they go bling.
Or not.
Or not.
Or sometimes they're like, God, what's this? Why is this guy asking me how I'm doing? And he appears like he cares. Right?
Right.
I love to go to the people who take, at the grocery store when I'm checking out groceries, right?
Right.
Like I go to my particular places looking forward to hopefully encountering some particular individuals, because over time, I ask them, hi, how are you? Like where I go and make my salads,
Right.
you know, and now sometimes we're hugging.
Right.
And that's kind of what I'm talking about, is like, it's in everyone. Everyone has the ability. Everyone has the ability to go to where they began. Because you're not going backwards. You're going forwards. But it's sort of like going back in time.
I kind of, especially now.
And I recognize that right in you.
Yeah.
Instantly. Yeah. It was a childlike nature of innocence and presence, and a real energy and a feeling of like, I'm really happy to be here right now.
Yeah.
And that's what I instantly captured. And here we are.
And, I don't know where, what I will say is I just feel that it's a responsibility. That's a big word.
No, that's a very applicable word.
It's a human responsibility.
It's a divine responsibility.
I think so.
A cosmic responsibility. Good. A universal responsibility.
Okay.
It is a responsibility, I feel, to humanity. As a whole.
Yes.
It is a responsibility to my fellow human to love them, is what I feel. And that's what I feel I was given when I got to be present with death and come back. That I was given something, and I take it real serious.
Cool.
But not in an uptight way, in a loving way.
Right. It's not a heavy burden.
In a kindergarten-like way. No, because it doesn't come from thinking, it comes from feeling.
Yeah.
When life is led in a sense of feel more, think less, oh my God, all of a sudden the wind is really loud.
Yeah.
The bugs are really loud. So are the horns. So is other people's attitudes, opinions, and judgment when they're not in the state of love.
Right.
It's all loud. There's all a lot going on out there. Can I love it and not be affected by it? Yeah. Part of that is what comes with transcendence.
Mm-hmm.
Right? How can I be in this world but not be a part of it?
Right. How can you transcend
the world, its conditioning, society, my childhood tradition of whatever my parents told me I shouldn't eat or read or believe or listen to or whatever.
Right. How can you transcend the noise?
Yeah.
The noise.
Do you want to? Do you know that you have noise?
Do you recognize that noise as noise?
Yeah. Or you just chalk it up as your life.
Or you just or that voice, or that, or that creative spirit that's going on in your life. But I tell you, when you do turn that down, there is something that turns up. Right?
Oh my gosh.
It's almost as if they cannot exist in the same space.
Well, they can't.
Right?
But they're interdependent of each other.
Yeah.
I learned that when I was in Hawaii. I had this wild, crazy thought that I shouldn't talk for a while.
Really? You went on silence? You went into a silent mode?
I went into a silent mode. One day I'm having a cup of coffee, right? And I'm feeling I want to try this silence thing, because I've always been comfortable with my own thoughts. I've always been able to see, feel my thoughts and rearrange them and look at them objectively, right? But I wanted to know, and I've always loved to talk.
Yeah, you do.
About feelings. Yeah. Even though before I come here, I always get worried about if I'm going to go blank or not. And I love how you're like, oh God, there's no way that could happen. Are you kidding? But so I did about 3.5 weeks without talking.
Really?
And it was a neat thing. All of a sudden one day, I'm going back to the market where I would go every day to get my poke or my plate lunch or whatever,
Sure.
And all of a sudden, I just hold up a little sign that says, I love you. I'm not talking. Thank you. And I just hold up my little sign and smile. And along the way, what I discovered was silence is the loudest noise out there. And people sing about it. They call it the sound of silence.
They do.
Right? The sound of silence is the loudest thing in the whole wide world. The energy that moves in silence is paramount.
The thought of that just felt so peaceful to me. I have never tried this, by the way.
Really?
No.
Oh, try it.
I know.
Try it.
I just don't know how to even start with that, but
right? Especially with the people that you know or see on a regular basis. You know, like let's say when you go to 7-Eleven to get your tea or your Monster energy drink or whatever, right? You know, just the people that you normally talk to on a regular basis or say hi, good morning, simple social niceties, hold up a sign that says, I love you. I'm not talking. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right? And just sit there with a smile, right? And you will be amazed at how you can communicate with them without words. Without sound.
I got an idea.
Okay, do.
This is the homework.
Go.
This is the
I love homework.
Let's make this homework.
I love homework. All right.
That's homework for our listening audience.
Cool.
What is it? I love you.
I love you.
I'm not talking.
I'm not talking.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I love it. I don't know. I don't even know that you'd have to do it for 3 weeks or even 1 week or even a day, but let's try that.
Try an experience, right? Like, let's just say
maybe just a morning.
Try it without putting parameters on it.
Or just that sign.
Go by feeling, right? Let's do this, right? Go by feeling. Have the sign. Yeah. You know, because, you know, people are going to have to sell them. They're going to have to sell themselves on doing it themselves, right?
Sure.
No different than going to the gym. You know, you got to sell yourself to go to the gym. And then every time you go to the gym, you're like, God, I'm really glad I did that. Just like going to the beach. You know what I mean?
Right.
You're like,
it's such a long drive.
Oh, yeah.
There's so much
traffic.
Sand that I'm going to have to vacuum out
it's a holiday, you know, and that's where you get super snobby. If it's a holiday and you're local, it's like, no, it's not on the weekends.
All the outsiders are here.
Yeah. But like, you know, even for just an experience, or I feel like what will really help the average listener is to go somewhere where they've never been and do that.
I like it.
Right?
I like it.
Go somewhere where you've never been, or if you're traveling on a trip. You know what I mean?
I'm going to do this.
Let's do it.
I'm going to do it. And I encourage all of you out there to do it. And again, it doesn't have to be for 3 weeks. Maybe just an afternoon, right?
Yeah.
You could start small. And I think that's going to, that you're going to find that you might actually transcend something. It doesn't have to be the ultimate transcendence, but let's try it and see.
Just touch it.
Touching.
Without expectation, without motive, right? Like, can you just not
have
talk?
That experience?
Just 'cause.
I love it. I love that. Let's do it.
You know, I know that, you know, as someone like... You know, when I woke up and I realized I was awake, God, I was just so overwhelmed with love. I was so overwhelmed with love and so consumed by that energy, right? So it's so natural and reflexive for me to say, I love you, right? And so that can also be something fun to practice later, right? To just speak those words and say, I love you. Because when you say I love you, man, that's entirely different than saying I'm in love with you.
Absolutely. Right? And I don't think that we should even, you know, back off of I love you. I think maybe we should practice that in the mirror more, you know? Sure. Just to get the hang of it. Because if you can say that to the man or woman in the mirror and see it,
feel it,
capture
its depth,
right?
capture its depth.
Capture its depth.
Then you're on to something.
Absolutely.
Something bigger than you.
Just start. And regardless of how people think about those 3 words, just start using them. I've had to dial those words back, just so you know. This is kind of funny.
Same.
Right? Because you're out and you've probably, like, I've been on dates where, first date.
Yeah.
I've had a great time.
Mm-hmm.
I've definitely been moving some energy.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
I move energy with all humans, right? Usually I'm like moving energy. And, I'm going to say goodbye and I'll say, I love you. And it's like, whoa, some of the looks that I've gotten over that, right?
Totally.
Right?
Totally.
It's like total, like, ooh, we're gonna, and then I'm stuck. Do I say,
Yeah, right. Like, like how do you back out of that one?
Do I start explaining? And most of the time I do nothing. I just let it sit there. And then they can have that if we have to have a conversation about it at another time. But what is that conversation like? I don't love you. I love you. I love people. Absolutely. It's easy to love people in my energy field. That's just, it's natural to do. And so, yeah, eventually I'll have that conversation with them and we'll talk about this flow. But I've gotten some interesting looks for sure.
No doubt.
I've definitely got a lot of deer in the headlights kind of looks. So
totally.
Today's episode is sponsored by Hum Mind Psilocybin Therapy, the sound of holistic health. Psychedelic therapy has shown meaningful results in helping with various mental health challenges, depression, anxiety, and alcohol use disorders. It's about more than just symptom relief. It's about exploring a new way of being. Find additional information at thehummind.com.
I'm a very happy dude. Absolutely. And without reason.
Without reason.
Yeah.
For happiness.
Yeah. I'm just happy just 'cause. And that's a whole other story. But
what is that story? Like, that's kind of what the show is about. We want to look at happiness and joy and peace and love. But we also want to, like, dial that back a little bit and just talk about things that we can do to attain that level of feeling, of beingness, of
happiness,
of energetic flow, right?
Yeah.
Like we want to take a look at those things. So tell us about your name.
You mean my name, Happy?
That one.
You mean like where it came from originally?
Yeah, well, or why you're always so happy.
I've always been a pretty happy fellow, right? And I've always perceived life with rather fresh eyes and a fresh heart. And I've always kind of smiled at life, right? Even through, when, we've all had our obstacles in life or our challenges or our trials, tribulations, the things that like kind of may suck pretty bad.
Right.
Right. But is one willing to kind of stay happy along the way, and not have those less than desirable elements of life affect our state of happiness, and one great example of an element in life that can affect one's happiness is death. Right?
I would imagine death would affect lots of states.
Death affects lots of states. For me, it is one of my favorite subjects, and that's on our show here is we get to talk about all sorts of things that every one of us experience. Life, death, love, joy, beauty, thinking. All these things are every person experiences these things, but every person tends to experience them differently. Yet in some ways along the backside, people always want to come out in a state of being happy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
And, for me, I got the nickname Happy when I was residing in Key West. And it was a street name. And I got to pedal people around. And one day, a friend of mine looks at me and she says, we need to name your street name Happy. And she was a fellow street vendor and things of that nature. And she just looks up at me and she says, you're happy. So let's get some cards made that say happy. Right? And so I had these little cards made that said the pedicab guy. Chillin' with momentum was my slogan, and happy was my name. And I would cruise up and down and just kind of smile and wave. And that's kind of how I've always been my whole life. I like to smile and wave, and because I feel people need to smile and wave at life.
Yeah.
Right? Not just others, but just life. I mean, life is a unbelievable gift, right? Just to be alive.
Oh, absolutely. And that's what this show is about. We want to use everyone with a sense of happiness, a sense of adventure. Let's raise, right? Let's just raise the energy around us.
Absolutely.
There's a way to do that. And this show is going to share with you ways in which you can actually physically raise your energy. And trance is the way to that place. I mean, that's what we believe, that trance is the way. And there's a lot of different ways to use trance to get there. And we want to share them all with you.
Absolutely. One by one, little by little, and along the way, I know, speaking for myself, when I talk about things like this with people, sometimes I may veer off a little, right? But I always seem to circle back around, with, like, let's take, for instance, the word trance. What is trance?
Trance. I like that. That's a great question. It's a great question because not only can we define it, but you might find that different people define it differently. So let's talk about how we define it.
Okay.
So trance is a state, and I'm going to call it a state of mind. Mind being the unexplainable. Most of the time we're talking about mind, we're talking about the subconscious mind, which is the one that's kind of always hidden, right?
Mm-hmm. But it's loud.
It is most of the time running the show, and we just don't know it. And so going into that state of trance actually allows you to have conversations that you're not normally having, and with parts of your mind that you aren't actually seeing. So it's the door.
Or may not even realize is there.
And may not realize is there, but it's the door. It's that door to the subconscious. And when you're in that state, there's so many things that can happen. As a matter of fact, we talk about trance to transcendence, but we can also talk about trance to transformation.
Yes.
Trance to transfiguration. Trance to trance, right? TRANS, trance to change. It's the way that you change from what it is that you may not be happy with to something that you're going to be happy with. And the best way to do that, sometimes, like you did with Happy, that change happens not at your own hand. Like you didn't order up this near-death experience that you had.
I did not.
But it is definitely a trance state.
Oh man, it was the catalyst behind everything, and it was a catalyst in a real simplifying like way. It came with amazing transformation. Right? And that still occurs, as if it's a daily thing.
Yeah.
Right. And whenever you say the word trans, right? Like I always go, all right, what does that look like? What does that look like to me? What does that look like to other people? You know, does it look like when you were a young kid, going to a rave with a glow stick and some amazing music that put you in a state where you felt something beyond yourself? Right?
Yeah, for sure.
Because that's kind of like what we're talking about, right? So that trance state can be in any state.
That trance state definitely can be caused by a number of different things. Like, right, you are actually in a place where something is happening. You're usually focused in on something and the world kind of falls away, right? Mm-hmm. And a lot of times it's described as like really concentrated focus with relaxation.
Ooh, that's really rad right there, right? Because in that state, there's it's like you put it, right? There's two different things going on.
Yeah, exactly.
At the same time.
At the same time.
At the same time. What a beautiful gift that is. That's like being in two separate dimensions at the same time.
That is
right? In a physical dimension, right? Like, you know, let's say you're laying down and you're attempting to meditate. You know, you're like, all right, I need to learn how to meditate. I need to quiet my thinking. My stuff is really loud and it's impeding in my day. I'm impeding in my own day. That's not cool, man. Right? That doesn't feel good. So I'm going to learn how to meditate. I'm going to start with breathing. Somewhere along the way, in just breathing, right? I know when I first learned how to meditate when I was 15, right? I learned how to go to my happy place. That trance, that the entering into the state of trance produced a transformation that looked like falling asleep. You know what I mean? But two separate things were going on at the same time.
For sure.
I started out with, just wanting to be quiet. But it took me someplace where I didn't know I was going, right? Yeah. And I allowed that to occur. And I feel like that's part of what our show is about.
That we're,
you know what I mean?
Moving into spaces.
No, that we are going to discuss topics of a wide variety that can move one into a place where they want to go, they think they want to go, but don't know what it looks like.
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
And we're going to show them.
We're going to show them. we're going to talk about it.
We are. And we're going to take our listeners by the hand, if that's what it takes.
Yeah.
And walk them right through that door.
Yeah.
Because absolutely there is a way home.
There is a way home, and that way is a personal way. You know, one of the ways that you and I got here together, having this beautiful experience, show, dialogue, right? For us, it's a little bit like playtime, but it's actually super, super, super serious, is just by talking and sharing and loving.
Yeah, for sure. And while it is super serious, why we do want to do some good work, it really is playtime.
It really is playtime.
Like love is this buoyant kind of a feeling, right? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And we want to stay in that state. We want this to be like light and lovely, wonderful, happy.
Free.
Absolutely. And we can actually choose that.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of part of the magic. You can choose to be in a state that can deliver you happiness.
Totally.
Love.
Totally.
Joy. Right?
Yes, indeed. It takes a lot of work, right? But at the same time, it doesn't. Because once you touch it, once you feel it, then you're on to something, right? So how does one initially touch it? One of the ways that I like to start out with is just being aware of my breathing.
Breathing is super, super important.
Critical.
It is super, super important.
Especially in the beginning.
It is, a lot of people start, right? That's the way that you start meditating. As a matter of fact, I believe there's 8 steps of yoga, mm-hmm. right? There's breathing, I believe, comes before concentration, which comes before meditation. And I may be wrong. I may be out of order there, but definitely pranayama breathing is one of those 7, 8 steps, the sutras, one of the 8 or 7,
yes,
7 or 8 sutras, right?
Yeah.
And so breathing is like super important, and it's a part of the practice.
One of the, something that as we're talking about it, for me, my life is a very clairaudient experience. It's a very hearing experience. So as we're talking, I hear stuff, right? And it doesn't come from my thinking. It comes from, we'll talk about that later, where it comes from.
Okay.
But what I was feeling was a repetition, a little bit of a repetition, a little bit of being present with repetition of breath is what initiates that place.
Repetition. Like a just measured breathing.
Or just being present with my breath.
Just being present.
Right? Just the mere awareness of being present with my breath, right? Without anything else except me and my breath can produce that state of trance that I touched when I was a young kid, and the byproduct of that was falling asleep.
Yeah. And a lot of times when people enter trance, they think they're sleeping.
Yeah.
And sometimes you do fall asleep, actually, when you're practicing meditation or self-hypnosis or some of those kinds of practices, and which is absolutely fine. But sometimes you're not asleep, and that is the goal, is to not fall all the way into sleep. But that's a hairy, definition, because we have the state of alpha, which then flows into theta and delta. These are all steps to sleep, to a deep REM sleep, right? And so what state of sleep are you in? You have to be in a state of sleep in order to be in trance. That's why it's called daydreaming. So it's called dreaming. You really are touching sleep, but the idea is to stay conscious.
And aware.
And
present in that altered state.
Right.
Right? Because any form of trance is an altered state. Like touching something new that is foreign to someone is a form of trance.
Right.
It's a form of an altered state. Right? Like let's say, as a young kid, you get butterflies. Someone new comes to school and all of a sudden you got butterflies, right? You got no idea where they come from. Can't really put words to it. But man, is one mesmerized. Right? You know what I mean? And
so you're bringing in mesmerism.
Yeah. So in that state of mesmerism, right, that can also be trance as well.
There are so many absolute ways that you can fall into that state. I mean, we have the ones where we're intentionally moving into a state of trance because we're taking up a practice that's going to deliver us there, like meditation. But there are times where people report that you're just there. Like sometimes we used to use epiphany a little differently, where you have an epiphany and it was something that felt like out of body almost. Maybe even how you were just saying that you hear something that's not necessarily a thought. There is kind of this otherworldly situation that's going on, and you just kind of...
amongst the world that's going on.
Right in the middle of the world that's going on, there's something else happening, and you
all
wake
the time
up to some great idea, right? Or you've solved some problem, or it's been solved. But
or you were given the insight to see the solution.
Absolutely. And what people will report is a trance state, and they were not practicing meditation. They were not sitting anywhere with their arms, their legs crossed or their arms folded, but they experience trance. So we can't talk about those because those are just like little wonderful gifts, right? Or big, huge, wonderful gifts. So we can't tell you how to have those kind of experiences, but there are ways that you can choose trance. There are practices that you use to enter trance, and you want to enter trance as often as possible Because that is where we get transformation. We get change inside of trance. Those changes, whether they're small changes or really big changes, like learning to love.
Totally.
And move love
or
into the world.
Just having a little bit of insight that one can recognize and capture and allow that insight to direct their life.
Yeah, for sure.
That,
absolutely.
I mean, that, you know, because as we're sitting here talking about it, it's like, you know, when you're having that insight moment, right? Don't you kind of feel like you're in a trance?
You probably are.
Right?
You probably are.
You know what I mean? Because in that space, right, there's no thought going on.
Yeah.
You're just like, you know, everything is still. There's immense space. You're free to feel everything. And all of a sudden, everything's quiet and it's heavy.
And you've got that hyper consciousness happening.
And a hypersensitivity, a hyper awareness that in that space, time stands still.
Yeah.
Right? Everything stops and you're just like, bam, you're like the center of the universe. Experiencing itself.
Yeah, for sure. Right? Yeah. Those are the states that we're talking about.
And they can be actuated. They can be touched.
Absolutely.
Right? And one of the things that I feel in that is when you do actuate it, when you're aware that you can play a part in touching it or igniting it, you open the door to something so much greater. Right? And along the way, along that great way, I feel is where we can experience the fruit of transformation. And the backside of that can look like transcendence. Thank you, Jocelyn, for just the way that we communicate, the things that we talk about. You know, I mean, how many conversations have we had over tea? And somewhere along the way we go, we should be recording this.
Yeah, we should be sharing.
Right? You know, because, I mean, most humbly saying for myself, sure, there's a little bit of nervousness that comes with this. But in the end, we're still just talking like we would have tea.
Absolutely.
Right? And so thank you for understanding. This is directed to the listeners. Thank you for bearing that in mind and having patience and love, because like I share with you all the time, you know, when we talk, I'm you and you're me. And let's talk about this stuff together, right? How we can be free from unnecessary suffering, especially the kind caused by ourself. And a really fun way to observe that is by not talking, smiling, and loving.
I love that.
It's a beautiful, fun way.
I love this so much. Okay, let's check back in.
Let's
next
check back
week
in
and see how everyone did with that.
Let's go have some fun with our little note that says, I love you. I'm not talking. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Jocelyn. I love you.
Love you back. See you next week.